It was the 1980s. Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States. He had a strange and very big problem. It was not about money or other countries. His problem was cheese. The American government had too much cheese. There were millions of pounds of government cheese. There was so much that it was stored in large caves in Kansas. The government could not sell all this cheese. John R. Block was the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. He said, "We can't find a market for it." The problem was very big. One person even said the best idea was to dump the cheese in the ocean. But President Reagan had a different plan. He decided to give the cheese away for free. The cheese was for America's poor families. So the cheese came out of the caves and went to people who needed help. Newspapers wrote stories about the free cheese. People stood in long lines to get their block of government cheese. This cheese became a cultural symbol. It represented a difficult time for many people. Soon, government cheese appeared in movies. Hip-hop artists who ate the cheese when they were young wrote songs about it. Their lyrics talked about eating government cheese before they had money for steak. This whole situation makes us ask some questions. How did the United States end up with caves full of cheese? And why were so many Americans taught that they must drink milk to be healthy? This is the story of how the government with the milk industry. It is a story about marketing and power. It shows how a nation was convinced that milk was an essential food. This is the story of how America was brainwashed by milk. 2. A good food for a long time. Milk is a very special food. It is the first food that humans drink. For babies, milk is everything. It has all the important nutrients they need to live and grow strong. Milk has been important for a very long time in human history. After people started to domesticate animals, like cows and goats, they discovered something wonderful. They learned that the milk from these animals could also feed their own babies when a mother's milk was not available. This was a big help for early human families. But for most adults, drinking fresh milk was not easy. When we are babies, our bodies can easily digest milk. As we grow up, many people lose this ability. Their bodies stop making the enzyme needed to break down the sugar in milk, which is called lactose. This common condition is called lactose intolerance. If an adult with lactose intolerance drinks milk, they can get a stomachache and feel sick. This is not a rare problem. Around the world, most adults are lactose intolerant, especially in places like Asia and Africa, where almost everyone has it. However, in some parts of the world, something amazing happened. In colder places like Northern Europe, growing crops all year was impossible because of the long, harsh winters. People depended heavily on their farm animals for food. They began to drink milk from their cows and goats to survive. Over thousands of years, their bodies adapted. They evolved. Their genes actually changed so they could continue to digest milk as adults. This is why today many people with ancestors from Northern Europe can drink milk without any problems. It was an important change for their survival. For the rest of the world, people found other clever ways to use milk. They did not drink it fresh because it spoiled quickly and was hard to digest. Instead, they transformed it into other foods. They learned to make delicious cheese. This process broke down most of the lactose, so it was easier to eat. The cheese could be stored safely for months in cool places like caves. They also made butter, another way to preserve the fat and nutrients from milk. For most of history, adults ate cheese and butter, while fresh milk was usually just for children. 3. Milk gets a new life. For many centuries, milk was not a popular drink for most adults. It was often risky to drink it straight from the cow. Raw milk spoils very quickly, and it can become a home for dangerous germs that make people very sick. Because of this danger, people usually turned their milk into other products. They made cheese and butter. The process of making these foods helped to preserve them, so they lasted much longer than fresh milk and were safer to eat. Then a very important change happened because of a French scientist named Louis Pasteur. He discovered that if you heat milk, you can kill the harmful germs inside. This process was named pasteurization in his honor. Pasteurization completely changed the story of milk. It made milk much safer for everyone, including children and adults. It also meant that milk could stay fresh for a longer time. This allowed milk to be transported to cities and sold in stores. People could now buy milk and trust that it was safe to drink. However, just as milk was becoming safer, the dairy industry faced a new challenge. This problem was competition from other foods. New technologies in the early 20th century made it possible to create new products. One of the biggest competitors was margarine. Margarine looked and tasted similar to butter, but it was often cheaper. Many families started to buy margarine instead of butter. This was a serious problem for dairy farmers who needed to sell their butter. In response to this competition, the dairy companies decided to work together. They formed a new organization called the National Dairy Council. The council's main job was to promote all dairy products. They wanted to convince the public that milk, butter, and cheese were essential for a healthy life. They started to use advertising and scientific studies to support their message. Their goal was to make people believe that dairy was the best choice and a necessary part of the American diet. This was the start of a big campaign to sell more milk. 4. Milk becomes a hero. The dairy industry needed to sell more milk. They found a powerful partner to help them: the U.S. government. The dairy companies and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, started to work together. They wanted to show everyone that milk was very healthy. They used science to help their story. In one early study, scientists gave food with butterfat to rats. These rats grew at a normal rate. Other rats were given food with a different kind of oil, and they stayed small and did not grow. The scientists found a special substance in the butter, which we now call vitamin A. The dairy industry used this study to tell people that milk could fix health problems. They said drinking milk was one of the most important things people could do to stay healthy. This was not just an advertisement. It was presented as real science with support from the government. The USDA, a government group, was now using its power to help sell milk. This new partnership began to change what Americans believed. Then something big happened that made milk even more popular: World War I. In the war, many American soldiers were not getting enough good food. The country needed to make them stronger to help them fight. Milk seemed like the perfect product. But it was hard to send fresh milk across the ocean to Europe. The solution was powdered and condensed milk. This kind of milk could last for many years without needing to be cold. It was like a magic powder. You just added water to make milk. This special milk was sent to the soldiers. People believed it made them strong and helped them win the war. Milk was now connected to being a good American. It was a patriotic food. Drinking milk meant you were supporting your country. It became a hero's drink. This new idea created a very high demand for milk. Farmers started to produce much more than before. Everyone, from soldiers to families at home, believed that milk was essential for a strong and healthy America. 5. The big problem of too much milk. After the wars, a new problem started. The soldiers came home, but the dairy farmers did not stop making large amounts of milk. They made too much milk for the number of people who wanted to drink it. This is called a surplus. In a normal market, when there is too much of a product, the price goes down. Farmers would then make less milk because it was not profitable. But the government saw milk as a special, patriotic food. It did not want the dairy industry to fail. So the government decided to help the farmers. When dairy farmers had problems and threw milk in the streets to make prices go up, the government stepped in. It started a new system to protect the industry. This system changed the normal rules of buying and selling. The government did not let the market fix the problem of too much milk by itself. Instead, the government passed new laws. These laws promised to pay farmers for their extra milk. If the price of milk was too low, the government paid farmers to make sure they did not lose money. This meant farmers could produce as much milk as they wanted. They knew the government would always buy it. This created a fake demand. The government became the biggest customer for milk that nobody else wanted to buy. This cycle continued for many years. After World War II, the milk surplus grew even bigger. By the 1970s, the problem was huge. The economy was not doing well, and dairy farmers were struggling again. President Jimmy Carter's government gave them $2 billion. More importantly, the government agreed to buy all the surplus milk products. They bought millions of pounds of butter and cheese. At one point, the government was buying 1/4 of all the cheddar cheese made in America. This surplus cheese was stored in huge warehouses and caves, creating a mountain of government cheese. 6. Selling a story. The government had to find a way to get rid of all the extra cheese. Their solution was to give it away for free. President Reagan's government started sending the cheese from the caves to the people. Trucks delivered large blocks of cheese to schools, food banks, and programs for poor families all over the country. People stood in long lines to get their share of this government cheese. For many families, it became a regular part of their food. But this solution had a hidden problem. Many of the people who needed this free food were from communities where lactose intolerance is very common. For example, many people with African, Asian, or Native American backgrounds cannot digest milk well. Giving them large amounts of cheese was not always helpful and could make them feel sick. The giveaway helped reduce the mountain of cheese, but it did not solve the main issue. Farmers were still producing too much milk because government programs paid them to do it. The problem was not going away. So, the dairy industry and the government created a new, powerful plan. They decided to change what Americans think about milk. They would sell a story. A new law started the Dairy Checkoff program. Under this law, a small fee was taken from farmers for all the milk they sold. This collected millions of dollars. The money was used for one main purpose: to create huge advertising campaigns to convince people to drink more milk. This program paid for some of America's most famous ads. In the 1980s, the slogan was, "Milk, it does a body good." Then, in the 1990s, the Got Milk campaign became a cultural icon. These ads were everywhere. You saw them on television and in magazines. They showed the most famous celebrities of the time. Movie stars, musicians, and sports heroes all appeared with a white milk mustache on their face. The ads did not sell a specific company's milk. Instead, they sold milk as a necessary part of a healthy life. The message was that drinking milk gives you calcium for strong bones and helps you grow. It was a simple story, and it was told to everyone, everywhere. Through this massive marketing effort, the dairy industry tried to make milk not just a food, but an essential part of being a healthy American. 7. Hiding cheese in your pizza. The big advertisement campaigns were very famous. Many people saw the Got Milk ads with movie stars and athletes. But these ads did not fix the problem. Every year, people in America drank less milk. The milk companies and the government were worried. They still had too much milk, and the famous ads were not enough to sell it all. So they needed a new plan. The new idea was clever. If people did not want to drink more milk, maybe they could eat more dairy. The best way to do this was to hide it in foods people already loved. The milk industry started to work with big fast food companies. They knew millions of people ate at places like Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and Domino's. These restaurants could help them sell a lot more cheese. First, they made a plan with Pizza Hut. The goal was to sell more pizza and more cheese at the same time. Together, they created a new and exciting product: The stuffed crust pizza. This pizza was different because it had a thick crust filled with melted cheese. People loved it. They bought the new pizza, and they did not always think about the extra cheese they were eating. They just knew it was delicious. Next, the milk industry worked with Taco Bell. They helped Taco Bell create a new food called the steak quesadilla. This quesadilla used 8 times more cheese than any other food on the Taco Bell menu. It was a big success. Then they helped Domino's Pizza. Domino's started to sell a pizza with 40% more cheese on top. People bought millions of these new pizzas. This plan worked very well. People were eating more dairy, but it was hidden in their favorite fast foods. They were not buying more cheese at the store. Instead, they were buying a new kind of pizza or a cheesier quesadilla. The dairy industry found a new way to sell all the extra cheese that farmers were producing, and many customers did not even notice. 8. The real story of milk. There is a big problem at the center of the milk story. It is about the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA. This government agency has 2 main jobs that are often in conflict. Its first job is to give Americans advice on what to eat to be healthy. Its second job is to help farmers and the agricultural industry sell their products. The USDA creates the country's official food guides, like the famous food pyramid. But the committee that advises the USDA on these guides often includes people who work for big food companies. For example, executives from large yogurt or dairy companies help make the rules. Their primary interest is to sell more dairy, so their advice might not be completely neutral or based only on science. This is a clear conflict of interest. Because of this, generations of Americans were told that they must drink milk every day. But do we really need milk to be healthy? The simple answer is no. Most of the world's population does not drink milk regularly as adults, and they are perfectly healthy. More than 5 billion people get the nutrients they need from other kinds of foods. In fact, some modern scientific studies show no strong connection between drinking a lot of milk and having fewer broken bones. Some studies even suggest that drinking too much milk could be bad for your health. People often say that we need milk for its calcium to build strong bones. It is true that calcium is a very important nutrient. However, milk is not the only place to find it, and maybe not even the best one. You can get all the calcium you need from many other delicious foods. Dark green vegetables like cooked kale are a great source. You can also get it from nuts like almonds or from fruits like dried figs. Tofu and beans are other good options for getting calcium in your diet. The idea that milk is an essential food is a story. It is not a story from science. It is a story created by a century of marketing, government policy, and industry influence. The government supported the dairy industry with money and by buying its extra products for decades. The industry then used that support to create clever advertisements that told a simple but not entirely true story. Dairy can be a wonderful part of a diet, but it is not a magic food that everyone must have to live a long, healthy life. What food did your family always tell you was essential to eat?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.